Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu says the reintroduction of the 350 Rand social relief grant is a step towards implementing a basic income grant. However, Professor Stephen Devereux from the Institute for Development Studies says South Africa needs a more comprehensive social protection program or system. He's arguing, in fact, that a basic income grant will make sense not just for the poor who receive it, but also for the rest of society. Professor Devereux joins us now live from Cape Town. Prof, it's great to see you. Thanks indeed for making time. In fact, you make a distinction between a basic income grant and basic income support. What's the difference between the two?
Good morning, Ayanda, and thank you. A basic income grant is usually seen as a flat rate payment to all citizens in a country, which will be the same amount for everybody, no matter how rich or poor, old or young. So, for example, 1,000 Rand to every South African. Basic income support is more targeted. It tries to fill the gap in the social protection system. And in fact, I'm not sure that a basic income grant is what South Africa needs right now. We already have very good grants. The child support grant, which reaches 2/3 of all children, over 12 million children. The pension, which reaches, the old age grant, which reaches a large number of older people over 60. But the gap between 18 and 60 years old is where we saw the huge problems created last year by the lockdown. People who are not employed or working on very low incomes and were forced to sit at home with no access to UIF or any other type of social protection. Those are the people who really struggle to get through and are struggling right now, actually, even under the current lockdown situation. So for them, basic income support makes sense. It fills the gap between 18 and 60 where there's no social protection for the low paid and unemployed.
So as far as you're concerned, the 350 social relief of distress grant is well targeted, but I presume it's just not enough.
It's a great start. I mean, we really need this, and I welcome the President's announcement that it's going to be reintroduced, and I watched the Minister's briefing yesterday explaining how people can apply for it. This is all good news. We're moving in the right direction, but it has two problems. One is it's not enough. Obviously, 350 Rand is nowhere near enough for people to live on. It's below even the child support grant, which is the lowest paid of the grants at 460 Rand a month. It's below the food poverty line. 585 Rand is what you need for a basic food basket. How can people even buy enough food for 350 Rand a month? And of course, the upper bound poverty line, which is at 1,227 Rand, is way beyond the capacity of the social relief of distress grant to meet. So people who get the grant will remain poor. However, it's going to make a big difference. It's going to help. And the second problem with it is that it's temporary. According to the President, it's going to be removed at the end of March next year. Having been introduced last year as a response to COVID, it's now come back because of the third wave. But after March next year, it's apparently going to be removed. Now, I really hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that this is the start of basic income support, which is permanent and in place and provides a safety net to those people who really need it, not just during COVID, but also in normal times, to deal with the huge problem of unemployment, the unemployment pandemic, in fact. And BIS, I think, is a way to at least start addressing that.
There are also calls for what is called a comprehensive protection system. In my mind, that makes it sound like it's not just about money. I may be wrong. Let me allow you to explain what is meant by that.
Well, we have social protection system programs, for example, social grants. Each of the social grants is a program: child support grant, older persons grant, disability grant, and the SRD. These are all social protection programs. But a system is a coordinated set of interventions which, number one, provides comprehensive coverage to meet the right to social security, because in the Constitution, every South African has the right to social security if they cannot look after themselves and their dependents for whatever reason beyond their control. So the system would be a set of programs that covers all the needs of all South Africans at all times. That's in terms of material support, income support, social grants, if you like. But also we need to have linkages to services. Now, I think it's really important to recognize that there are two types of services that the poor need. One is social services. They need access to healthcare, of course. They need access to education and quality education and quality healthcare and social work and social care, also to deal with the psychosocial stress that's been caused by the lockdowns. So social services are really important. But we also need links to economic services. You know, we don't want the number of people depending on social grants to keep going up and up and up year after year. In one sense, it's a success story because more people are getting the support that they need. On the other hand, people really need jobs. We need to get these people off grants and into work, and most people want to work. So how can we create economic opportunities and linkages to the labor market, which will get people into work, and we can then start reducing the social relief of distress grant and other social grants as poverty falls and unemployment falls.
precisely where I was hoping we'd go, Prof. I mean, the well-rehearsed argument, I'm sure you must have heard of it as well, against any basic income support is that it fosters dependencies. I wonder in what ways we can start exploring, or let me pose the question this way. Is introducing something like a BIG perhaps working against the ability of beneficiaries to self-actualize in the future, or is the data actually pointing in a different direction?
I think that's a very important question because we have to challenge this notion that getting a social grant somehow makes people lazy and gets them to choose sitting at home rather than going out looking for work. As I've already said, there's no way anybody can live on 350 Rand a month, and there's no person in South Africa, I think, who wants to live on 350 Rand a month. If the jobs were there, most of the between 7 and 11 million unemployed, depending on which number you use, most of those millions of people would choose to find work and to get a job and to go to work every day. And the fact that they can't is why they need the social protection, why they need the basic income. So the argument that people, I heard Mampela Rampele, who I respect greatly in many ways, I heard her on your channel the other day saying that people should self-liberate by getting themselves out of poverty, by working hard, and shouldn't use the dummies of social grants. And she was arguing very strongly against basic income. Well, that's all well and good if there are jobs out there. But if there aren't jobs out there, what are people supposed to do? And what about the right to social protection that the government is required to provide if you can't find a job? So I'm saying that it doesn't create dependency. People are not going to choose 350 Rand a month rather than a job. What we need is investment in job creation and linkages to economic opportunities so people can get off those grants and into work.
You've been involved in a lot of policy work in some respects. Do you get a sense that government is listening to academics like yourself?
I must say I'm very encouraged. I think that last year's 500 billion Rand stimulus package was amazing. It was way beyond anybody's expectations. And I'm not talking about the implementation. Obviously, there were challenges with the implementation. But the fact that the government stepped up and really tried to help people who were struggling and who were affected badly by the lockdown, that was a great sign. And it has costs. Of course, we have a huge debt now to pay back. And the new SRD is also going to create another debt of 38 or 40 billion Rand. But we need it. We can't avoid paying that debt. And somehow we've got to find a way out of this situation where that debt can reduce as unemployment also falls. But in the meantime, I'm encouraged that the government is taking the necessary steps to provide at least some kind of basic protection for the poor and unemployed.
It's been a conversation that's been taking place for quite literally more than a decade. It's great to get a sense that there's some kind of movement, even though we're nowhere near where we're hoping to get. Let me thank you for your time. Really appreciate your insights this morning on the AM Report. Professor Stephen Devereux is with the Center of Excellence in Food Security. Live to us there from Cape Town.